a microscopic parasite with potentially devastating consequences. Rat lungworm disease continues to be a hidden threat in Hawaii. Now, new research finds that this parasite may be hiding in more than just your produce. From diagnosis to treatment to prevention, what the experts have to say. Plus, a survivor shares her experience with her ongoing recovery. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Yanji Denise. It's a growing concern for the islands in recent years, rat lungworm disease. This evening, we will be talking to the experts about what this disease is, how it can spread, and how you can protect yourself. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email or call us with your questions. We also encourage you to get involved with the conversation on our Facebook page. Now to our guests. Dr. Rob Cowie is a research professor at UH Manoa's Pacific Biosciences Research Center. His expertise in snail species led to his research into rat lungworm disease. So far, he's published some 30 academic research papers on the disease, including one just days ago, and he'll be sharing that with us tonight. Dr. Kiana Frank is also with UH Manoa's Pacific Biosciences Research Center, where she's an assistant professor studying the impact of microbes in the native ecosystem. She also brings a unique voice to tonight's panel because she is recovering from rat lungworm disease herself. Dr. Vernon Ansdell is an associate professor at the University of Hawaii's John A. Burns School of Medicine. He's a specialist in travel and tropical medicine and recently helped develop updated guidelines for the diagnosis and treatment of the disease. And Joe Elm is with the Hawaii State Department of Health's Communicable Disease Division. He is the supervisor for the Field Investigation Section of the Disease Investigation Branch. The Disease Investigation Branch is responsible for more than 64 reportable diseases and conditions. Thank you all for being here tonight. We so appreciate it. I want to start with you. Tell us just the basics. What is rat lungworm disease?
Rat lungworm disease is a disease caused by a parasite scientifically known as Angiostrongylus cantonensis. The parasite, the natural life cycle of the parasite goes through rats, hence rat lungworm, and snails. And the way it works, briefly, is that the adults reproduce in the rat in its pulmonary system, so the pulmonary arteries leading to the lungs. They mate, the females lay eggs, and those eggs travel through the pulmonary artery to the lungs where they hatch into first stage juvenile worms, larvae. And those larvae are coughed up the trachea, up the windpipe, and they go down the gut and out the other end of the rat in the rat's poop. So they're sitting there in the poop, and a snail or a slug comes along and eats that poop and ingests those first stage larvae, which then develop in the snail or slug. And let me from now on just say snails, it's simpler. Those first stage larvae develop through to the second stage and then to the third stage in the snail. And that third stage is the infectious stage of the parasite. And that just sits there in the snail, just hanging out until a rat comes along and eats that snail, ingests those third stage larvae with the snail. Those third stage larvae go down the rat's gut and eventually work their way through different organ systems and the circulatory system to the rat's brain. And from there, they develop from that third stage that the rat's just ingested to the fourth stage, and then the fifth stage, which is the subadult stage. Those subadults leave the brain and go down to the pulmonary system, to the pulmonary artery, where they grow, mature, and reproduce, and the cycle goes round and round. So, if instead of a rat eating that snail that has those infectious third stage larvae in it, a person comes along and eats that deliberately, they do, you know, on a dare sometimes. They'll eat that snail deliberately or accidentally, and the same thing happens as it does in the rat. The third stage larvae are ingested, go down the gut, eventually reach the brain, and there they mature to the fourth and fifth stages. But our brains are different from rats' brains, and so they can't get out. And we don't understand why they don't get out, but they die in your brain. And it's the movements of the worms feeding and growing in your brain, and then the death of the worms, which causes a heightened immune reaction and inflammation. That's what causes the symptoms of the illness that we know as rat lungworm disease.
Oh my goodness. Dr. Ansdell, let's bring you in on this. Talk about what you see in patients, how this is actually expressed, when those are in your brain, what he's talking about there, and how this is diagnosed.
The disease presents in a wide variety of ways, and that's what makes it so difficult for medical personnel to make the diagnosis. Symptoms occur after the slug or the snail has been swallowed, when it gets absorbed from the gut, and as it spreads through the liver, the heart, the lungs, and finally gets to the brain. So you get a whole constellation of symptoms, which is very confusing. And it doesn't get any easier once it gets to the brain, because as these larvae, these worms, migrate around the brain, they're causing all sorts of different symptoms. And so patients present in very strange ways. It can be very confusing.
Okay, Dr. Frank, I want to bring you in on this because you've experienced this firsthand. Tell us a little bit about how you first believe that you contracted the parasite and what happened.
I honestly had no idea I contracted rat lungworm. I presented very differently, which is not surprising to me. I always like to be different. But I started out with a big inflammatory response. I thought I was having an allergic reaction. I was so itchy. I had developed bumps all over my body. And that's something, I'm allergic to a lot of things. This is pretty common. So I called my doctor, and I was immediately prescribed prednisone, which honestly I think is probably what saved my life, being prescribed prednisone so early in that process. But as soon as I got on the medication, my symptoms started to change. I then got a really high fever. I didn't know quite what my body was experiencing, but I just started having these really intense pains. They felt like I was being electrocuted, or like lightning was striking me, or that I suddenly gained magical powers but couldn't express the magic out of my body. And I don't really like doctors. I don't.
Even though you are one?
Medical hospitals.
Right.
I struggle with those layers. And so I didn't want to go to the hospital. My husband and I actually had a deal that if my fever hit over 103, we had to go to the ER. And by that time, I couldn't even walk. He had to basically carry me, kicking, screaming because I was in so much pain. And we went to the ER, and they had no idea what was wrong with me. They did some scans, they sent me home, they thought I would be fine. And then as soon as we got home, about a couple hours later, they called and said, you have to come back. And they thought I had a bacterial infection in my blood. I had a high fever, I was presenting with all these symptoms. And so they started treating me with broad spectrum antibiotics, which, yeah, sure, broad spectrum antibiotics, except the pain only kept getting worse and worse. I found out I was allergic to morphine, so that didn't make pain management any simpler. And it was 17 days in the hospital until the doctors had any clue, until they did a spinal tap and got my fluids and saw elevated eosinophiles, which are a white blood cell that really indicates a parasitic infection. And really, one of the only ones here in Hawaii would be rat lungworm. And so I hadn't been on any albendazole. They kept me on prednisone, but the only type of pain I had was Tylenol. And I just really want to say I'm so grateful for my nurses that took care of me during COVID. When I was by myself, I was afraid. I was in so much pain that like even a hair or a touch, it felt like I was on fire. I was constantly being electrocuted. I don't think I slept in weeks and weeks. It was a very hard experience. And then when we finally got the diagnosis, I remember my doctor, who was just the most amazing man ever, he came in and he said, "We think you have rat lungworm." I think I laughed at him because, you know, Rob has been asking me for years to study rat lungworm with him, and I always said no. So this was a sign from the universe. But at that point, I was just so excited to have a diagnosis. And they immediately put me on albendazole, which by that time, you know, who knows if that even did anything. The layers of the parasite in my body may have already been dead. But what they did do, because my pain was so extreme and I didn't tolerate a lot of the pain meds very well, they ended up doing a very experimental treatment on me, which was only tried once before on another rat lungworm patient, where they basically infused me with lidocaine. And the idea was to turn off my nervous system and turn, you know, the good, like, if it's broken, turn it off and then turn it back on. So they tried to do that with my nervous system, and, you know, it kind of worked. I could, like, actually talk instead of, like, screaming in pain for once.
Wow. I want to bring up this photograph that you brought with us, because I think that can help to explain why you were having the nerve symptoms that you were, or the pain that you're talking about. Tell us what we're seeing right here.
Yeah, so one of the cool things about being a scientist and understanding the value of research is that we did research on me. I wanted to know what was wrong. We did a biopsy because it's really hard to confirm the type of diagnosis that I had, not the rat lungworm. We could confirm that with molecular methods, but this small fiber neuropathy, which I had. So in the top picture is a normal person. We have these large fiber nerves, and then we have these small fiber nerves. And these small fiber nerves basically control your sense of touch and temperature and pain and itchiness. And they also control a lot of your autonomic functions, so things that are like unconscious, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your peristalsis of your intestines, your ability to, you know, squeeze and go to the bathroom in all different ways, your endocrine system. So basically what they think happened, because I was feeling so much pain, and they did these, like, they literally shocked me. That's how you test if you have nerve issues. They literally shock you once, and they saw that my large nerves, I was responding normally. But there's no way to kind of get at this small fiber neuropathy kind of diagnosis, which when they're not there, you basically feel everything at once. It's like you're under the cruciatus curse. Oh my goodness. And in this photo, it basically shows a person with a normal nerve fiber density, right? And you see all the little squiggles, those are all your small nerve fibers. And then the bottom is mine. And you can see that there's no little squiggles. And so really, you know, in the treatment process, right, you treat with albendazole to kill the parasite, but the rest of the process is just really pain management. There's not really anything to grow your nerves. And so you can think of it like it's a forest fire, right? The worms that come into your body are like a fire that is raging through your forest. And even though you bring in the fire department and you quench the flames, the damage is still there. It's still a charred forest that no longer functions like a forest. And it takes a really, really long time and a lot of care in order to regrow that forest back to where it should be. And you can totally do it, but it's challenging. And so many of us that work in these types of conservation realms know that when you burn down a forest, a native forest, you don't necessarily get a native forest to grow all the way back. And so this is kind of the process that I've been going through for the past 30 months on this journey, and it's a journey. Nerves grow really slowly, 1 millimeter a day.
Wow, that's just incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us. Joe, I want to get your take on this. You know, how prevalent is this? How concerned should we be? Because what Dr. Frank is describing just sounds terrible. How much of this parasite is in our community, and what are you seeing in terms of tracking, you know, cases?
It's a difficult question because we definitely need some better testing methods to catch people early in the disease. In the early days, we looked at the spinal fluid to see if we could actually see worms in the spinal fluid, and that was a confirmatory test. In the absence of that, the physicians with the eosinophilia, and they knew they had contact with snails or slugs or something, could make a provisional diagnosis. More recently, we have a PCR test that can amplify the genetic material from the worm, and it's a good test, but it's not perfect yet. We need better sensitivity. I can tell you, out of the 368 samples that we received in the last 5 years, or 7 years, I guess, only 90 were confirmed. And they send it to us because they have a provisional diagnosis. This person has some eosinophilia and symptoms that may be rat lungworm disease. But the test depends on a certain level of eosinophils in that spinal fluid. So if it isn't reach this threshold of 10%, we don't pick it up in the test. Now, there are new tests coming along, and of course, our state lab, everybody wants that test that's going to diagnose this earlier, because the earlier, Dr. Still can tell us, the better in terms of treatment, either with albendazole or prednisone. So that's kind of what we're looking for. We try our best to help them with the diagnosis. We do a lot of the epidemiology. We go out to the cases with vector control, and we look what the slug and rat burden is there, give them information, how they can maybe clean up things, work with the farmers and stuff. So it's there. It's more prevalent in the wet seasons. Why we don't see so many right now is kind of a hard question, unless it's just low burden on the people that have been exposed. They have 1 or 2 worms, they have a headache for a few days, versus something that we just heard about, which is truly frightening, you know, with a large burden of worms.
Let's talk about how this is contracted. So it sounds like eating raw produce is really, you know, the primary mechanism. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
You know, that's also a difficult issue. The obvious method is that you eat a snail, slug, deliberately or accidentally. Obviously, if you've eaten it deliberately, then we know about it. If you've eaten it accidentally, we may not even know about it. It may just be the default assumption that you must have done that if there's no other obvious method that the patient can tell you about or whatever.
And these snails are small. I mean, we're not talking about...
Well, it's not all the snails, pretty much all the species of snails that we have here, most of them non-native, invasive species, one has to assume carry rat lungworm disease. We've screened a whole bunch of them, different species, and they vary in the level of the infection in each individual snail, and also across species. And one thing that we have found is that the very small snails, particularly of the species that only ever get to be sort of so big, as opposed to the giant African snail, which can get up to be just big. They can carry the parasite, and obviously you could miss one of those in a salad or a sandwich or whatever. And often we wouldn't know that. And so we can't say for sure that eating a snail that you've got mixed up with your lettuce is the predominant way people get infected here. It's a sort of default assumption if there's no other obvious way of that they might have got infected. the one thing that we often get asked, and perhaps someone's going to ask this, and maybe I'll preempt them, and that is that people often ask, can you get it from the slime that the snails lay down in their slime trails on a leaf of lettuce, for instance? And the answer to that is not entirely clear. Up until recently, up until an ongoing experiment in my lab right now, there'd been 6 studies of release of rat lungworm larvae in snail slime. And these had been done in Jamaica, in Malaysia, a couple of studies here, another study in New Caledonia. And these studies, some of them go back into the 1960s. And they all come up, and they've used different species of snails, slugs, and they've done mostly rather minimalistic experiments. One of them just was, I haven't really seen very many worms coming out of snails. That was it. The others were a bit more rigorous, but none of them showed a large number of worms being released in the slime. We're in the middle of an experiment right now, and I can't really tell you the answers because I don't know the definitive answer yet because we haven't done all the analysis. But soon, in a couple of months, we'll be able to tell you the results of that experiment, in which a grad student has run over 200 slugs, what we call semi-slugs, the thing that's caused the problem, seems to be at the center of the problem on the Big Island, this one particular species, which we know to be very heavily infected. She's done an experiment where she has looked at the different levels of infection in the slugs to see whether the more infected you are, the more you release, if you release any at all. And she's also looked at different measures of stress that we subject the snails to, and to see whether that also causes them to release more larvae. There are hints that both those things are true, but I'm not going to stake my life on it at this point because we haven't fully analyzed the results. But we hope to get it published early next year. So we'll have another chat then.
Stay tuned, right.
Could
Dr.
I,
Ansel, yes, please go ahead.
Could I add one more? On the Big Island, we have a lot of catchment systems. And the snails and slugs will climb up, and so if they're not closed, they get inside. And we have some evidence that some of the transmission has been through these catchment systems. And of course, you alluded to a Maui case where some got into a kava bowl that was left out overnight, and we had 6 or 8 cases of rat lungworm from that event. So they can get in places besides vegetables and fruits and stuff. So catchment is another way, and so people need to be careful if they're going to live on catchment system, filtering the water or doing what they need to do to
but
keep
given
that
how
safe.
tiny these worms are, it seems like it would be pretty hard to filter out.
Oh, the filter systems will do it. Unfortunately, the smaller the pore size, the more expensive it is. So that's, but it's worth the money if that's going to be your drinking water, right? So.
Dr. Ansel, let's talk a little bit about the treatment and the diagnosis. She was saying that it took 17 days for them to figure out what was happening with her body because the symptoms are so diverse. Tell us a little bit about what are the sort of more typical symptoms for this disease and how soon it can be identified.
A lot of the symptoms are linked to the intensity of infection and exactly where the parasite is causing the problem. So you get this whole range of symptoms, and it makes it very difficult for physicians or any medical provider, if you like, to come to a rapid diagnosis. The symptoms can be just bizarre, confusing. They don't really make sense. They don't fit with any obvious disease, if you like. And then it's very characteristic, at least in my experience, that people describe these symptoms in a very sort of florid, theatrical way. And it's just because of what they're experiencing. It's very dramatic. But people talk about electric shocks and I've never heard of magical powers before, but all sorts of stuff comes out. And for a busy clinician, the temptation is to think, oh, this person is very anxious, or they're imagining all these things going on. And so they get dismissed, and you see this chain of events where people go to their regular physician, they go to urgent care, they go to the emergency room. There's this fragmented care, and nobody really nails down what the diagnosis is. So 17 days is not unusual at all. In fact, I think you were very lucky that the physicians who were involved had a very high level of concern about this disease. They were aware of it, and they made the diagnosis early. Unfortunately, even that can be a bit late, 17 days. Some of the work that we've done or looked at suggests that you really need to make the diagnosis and start treatment within 15 days of getting infection. That's a very quick sort of process. It can take a week or two for symptoms to actually arise. And so,
and that's counting against the 15.
Yes,
that
exactly.
week.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how can you possibly make that diagnosis? So people have to have a very high level of concern about this disease. And the moment they get enough evidence that this is what's going on, they start treatment. And we think people should start treatment with steroids, high-dose steroids, and this anti-worm medicine, albendazole. And they should start treatment before you've got absolute confirmation of the diagnosis. The clock is running. You can't wait, several days to get confirmation, if you like. And so you have to start treatment very early on.
Because if you don't,
that's when people get into really big trouble. The worms, when they get into your body, are tiny. They're microscopic. You can't see them. But they grow, once they get into the brain, they grow into quite large worms that are causing a lot of damage. And so I don't think it's oversimplifying it, but you just think, kill them while they're tiny. Don't wait for them to grow and become these large, much larger worms. So when they actually die, they're going to cause a major inflammatory reaction.
We've got quite a few viewer questions. I want to get to those in a minute. But Dr. Frank, do you have any idea of where you may have contracted this?
It's a great question. As somebody who studies microbes in mud and has been growing up tasting mud, chasing the Lepoaia, the edible mud of Kauai Nui, it seems pretty ironic that that is the least likely place where I contracted this. It was during COVID. I hadn't been in the field in a long time, and my husband and I made we very thoughtfully wanted to support our local communities, and so all of our produce, all of our purchases were from local farmers markets, from local farms to, support our farmers during this really hard time. And it just likely happened that, a tiny snail or a big chunk of a larval load was in a bite that I consumed. And, there's PTSD. I don't eat anything raw now, nothing, unless it has like a security guard coat, like a banana or an orange, right? But it saddens me when things like this create fear and then people don't want to support our local farmers. And that's what I really don't want to happen, because it's not the farmer's fault. And there are a lot of farmers who are very proactive about this issue, and they institute very stringent washing practices before they go to market. But also, recognizing that this is everywhere. Just because there's not a lot of people that get infected doesn't mean that there's not a lot of snails and slugs carrying this parasite in our environment. And so as we think about diversifying our agriculture, right, like traditionally we had kalo, uala, ulu, taro, sweet potato, and breadfruit that all had to be cooked for a really long time. Most of these traditional foods you cook for a really long time. And so if we then start diversifying out to growing kale next to kalo that has huge amounts of semi-slugs growing within the kalo ha structure that we don't even see because we end up cooking it for 3 hours under pressure. You know, thinking about those layers of how do we actually diversify our agriculture here to support our people and our communities during times of pandemic without introducing these introduced parasites into our population.
Joe, let's bring you some of these viewer questions. What is the best advice for home gardeners to prevent getting rat lungworm? This is from Eric in Kailua. And Lisa in Pahoa, you know, you did reference that we're seeing a lot of this on the south side of the Big Island. Is this disease Hawaii-centric? Lisa lives in Pahoa, so I'm assuming that's why she's asking that. So where are we primarily seeing this? And then the advice to home gardeners and people who are growing their own food on how to keep this out of their yard. Yeah,
certainly the Big Island has many more cases than all the other islands combined. So it's very prevalent there. It was interesting, and some of the local farmers came out to some of the meetings that we held and, with the ag, and they would raise their garden, or they would put really sharp gravelly rock around their garden, so snails, they don't like to go across that to get into their plants. And we advised them, they had this idea that if they have this pesticide-free garden, they could reach down and grab this tasty little lettuce and just eat it right there on the spot, not thinking about what else might be in there. So grazing is not a good idea. I mean, you can grow it, but you have to do the same thing. You wash your lettuce very well under running water, and that works. So there's things they can do. Raise your garden. A lot of farmers went to hydroponic, so it's raised on platforms. They have copper around the legs because they don't really like to go across copper. They have 2 metal strips that if they touch the other strip, they get an electric shock, and so they back down, and the gravel. So they're doing a lot of things like that to protect their crop. But even so, we get it. I buy the nice Maui hydroponic. We wash every leaf anyway, just because, you know.
Okay, Chemo on Facebook says, where can we get information on this terrible disease? And this is where we have a good segue for you now, Chemo, and for the rest of our audience. We're going to continue our conversation here in the studio in just a moment, take more of your questions. We want to take a brief moment to share a preview of the second part of our special presentation tonight on rat lungworm disease. The documentary Accidental Host, the story of rat lungworm disease, will be airing right after our show. Here's a sneak peek.
When I got sick with rat lung, I was in Kapoho, Hawaii. I would surf and I would skateboard every day. And then I started getting sick.
What happened was the introduction of a semi-slug.
There, all right. These seem to be heavily infected with worms.
Higher than some of the other species.
It looks pretty suspicious to me.
People get infected inadvertently.
Everything goes in the mouth.
Probably by eating a small snail or slug mixed up in a salad, for instance.
Larvae, when they're ingested, are microscopic. You can't see them with a naked eye.
It's interesting because parasite doesn't want to be in us. We're not going to complete that parasite's life cycle. It is really an infection of rats. But the consequence of the parasite and the snails and slugs can be significant.
It's a difficult disease to diagnose.
They thought it was a flu and they sent me home. That has allowed the worms to continue migrating.
Suddenly, I was in the acute phase of the illness. It was moving throughout my body.
The liver, the heart, the lungs.
The fact that parasites are actually migrating through your body is creepy.
They get to the brain and the spinal cord, and they develop.
It's a horrendous disease, mentally and physically devastating.
We had a cluster of cases, some of them so severe that they needed intensive medical support.
The only thing that he could do was move his head back and forth and open and close his eyes.
You can see his spinal cord here, and here we see these tracks of the worms actually traveling through the brain.
The worms nibble on stuff. I went into a coma. I was in the hospital for 4.5 months. I had to relearn everything.
You know, a lot of people that have been infected, they can't work again. Their financial situation is ruined.
And as the ecology of places change, interactions with different peoples, the world becoming a smaller place, we can probably expect to see some of these infections popping up in different places of the world.
These parasites are not going away. The rats are not going away.
This disease is an emerging disease, and it's spreading. And we're just one station on the way as it spreads across the world.
It is a fantastic film. It is airing right after this show tonight, so please do stick around here on PBS Hawaii. Now, of course, back to our guest on the conversation. Reminder, of course, you're welcome to send in your question, and I want to pose this one to you, Dr. Ansdell. We heard your voice there in the film as well. Are there animals besides slugs and snails that carry the parasite? Do we, we know that it's primarily there, but are there other hosts of this parasite?
There are a lot of animals that can harbor the parasite. They behave in a different way. They're accidental hosts, if you like. I think Dr. Cowie can probably answer this question with some more details about other things that are involved.
Sure. So there are different, like Dr. Ansdell said, there are different kinds of hosts. He mentioned accidental hosts. We are accidental hosts. The parasite develops, but only up to a point, cannot complete its life cycle in us. They die in our brains. But they have developed a little bit. There are other animals and mammals, birds as well, that can act as accidental hosts. The other category that we just published a paper about recently is what are called paratenic hosts or carrier hosts. And what these hosts do, they get infected the same way that a rat does or we do by eating a snail that has third stage larvae in it. But then those larvae cannot develop at all. They stay stuck at the third stage and they sit there until that, what we call paratenic host, is eaten by, say, a person. And there's the most bizarre collection of different kinds of animals. From here in Hawaii, we have frogs. We talk about the koki, for instance, can carry rat lungworm. There you go. Flatworms, which are the black wormy thing that they're about 3 inches long. They're snail predators, very voracious snail predators. The Cuban greenhouse frog, which is the frog that is even more widespread than the koki. It's the one that goes very quietly, sort of. The cane toad, the buffos, and of course the centipede. We all hate those 6-inch long, ginormous centipedes. We're all petrified of them. But people in China, where it was first discovered that these can carry rat lungworm, they eat them raw.
What?
Can you believe it? I'm convinced that they must have to cut their heads off because so that they can't bite.
So.
Yeah, but they eat them raw, and those centipedes have been shown to carry rat lungworm disease here. Same species of centipede, but there are other animals elsewhere. In Thailand, for instance, and Thailand, India, Sri Lanka, they eat monitor lizards or parts of monitor lizards. And I'm not going to tell you which parts, but it's to enhance their virility. And they get rat lungworm. Their virility is seriously compromised.
Oh my goodness. Dr. Ansdell, we saw in that video children, and we know that kids love to play outside, and I think that a lot of parents who might be watching would think, can I let my kids run outside barefoot in the lawn, knowing that there are all these hosts for these parasites all over the place? What is your thought on that?
Yeah, small children are a real concern. I mean, obviously people like to let their children play in the garden, and they end up playing with slugs and snails, handling them, putting them in their mouths sometimes, and they can get infected that way. And when they do get infected, they tend to be more seriously ill than the average adult, if you like. And I think it's all down to just the size. If you're getting a certain number of worms that you're absorbing, if you're just a small child, a small baby, then you're going to get sicker than a large adult ingesting the same number of worms. So it's a real concern with small children. And the idea of saying, well, you can't allow your children to go outside and play is it's not very realistic. And there are a certain number of cases on a fairly regular basis, and there is a child in the documentary that you'll be seeing later on. It shows very well what happened, and to hear the mother talking about how traumatic the whole thing was. But she was wonderful in terms of helping her child recover. Though the last time I saw the child, he was still in the process of recovery.
This recovery process sounds incredibly long. You said that you're 30 months out now and still recovering. Tell us about where you are now and that process to recover. You get to the 17 days, you figure out what you have, and then it sounds like it's just the beginning.
Yeah, I think one of the challenging things about this disease is because it's hitting your nervous system, right? There's a cascading effect of all these other things happening. You basically have knocked your body out of balance. You're completely out of whack. And so everybody's going to respond differently, but your body's out of balance. And so systems take a bit to get rebooted or restarted, or might not get restarted. I think the process, and you'll see in the documentary after this, a lot of us had a lot of issues with walking, with talking, with reading. I couldn't remember words. My job is based on my brain a lot of times, and I was really scared that that was something that I wasn't going to have at the end of this. I couldn't read. I couldn't walk. And it was during the time of COVID, and so it was kind of a, do I go into a hospital for physical therapy and occupational therapy, right, and get exposed to potentially greater risks coming in so often, or do I quarantine at home and do all of it kind of on my own? And that's what I did. I mean, I read from elementary level books every day. I have a PhD, and I had to start with like Dr. Seuss level books and work my way up every day. I practiced math. I had to read out loud to practice talking. I practiced walking. My dog was the biggest help. We would literally just walking across the room and back was a huge success for the day. Sitting up in my bed and functioning, having a conversation was a huge win for the day. And so I know it's been 30 months, and I often, it gets frustrating sometimes when the you that you were before was running around Loko'i'a and Fish Pond carrying giant pohaku, building kuapa, and hiking up mountains to collect samples. And those are layers that I haven't quite gotten back to yet. But just kind of acknowledging how far I've come in the process, and remembering 2 years ago, there was no way I could have talked at this rate and this level. I was slurring my words. I was speaking really slowly. And so it's a long, long road to recovery. Nerves recover very slowly, and we just don't really know that much about the nervous system. The doctors were 100% sure I was going to get back to 80%, and I have. And I think I'm even at 85%. But whether that 85% needs to be recalibrated to my new 100%, or I can keep pushing and reclaim that last 15%, right, to get to 100, I honestly don't know. But you'll see in the video too, like having a support system, having family and a positive attitude, and just keep pushing forward. I mean, I feel like that's what kept me moving. And
yeah,
you smile and you push and you be brave.
Wow. Well, we have a lot of prevention questions. So, Joe, I think these are good for you. And they're all about produce, not surprised. Jeannie's saying, should we be concerned with consuming produce from the mainland? Similarly, someone in Honolulu says, I buy leafy green vegetables from Whole Foods, which I assume originate from the mainland. What's the risk of these vegetables that are imported? And then Linda in Pearl City, what is the best way to wash vegetables to get rid of the larva? There was another question here. Should we rinse our local farmer's market lettuce in a bleach wash? Should we freeze our vegetables? What if I cook them at a high heat? Lots of questions as to how we prevent this in the first place.
All right. Well, washing with just plain water is the best. You don't need to have vinegar or Clorox or anything like that to wash off the worm.
Could I just add to that?
Yeah, sure.
If you don't mind. We did some experiments on washing slugs off lettuce, and we tested plain tap water against bleach, dilute bleach, vinegar, and salt water. And the idea is not so much to kill the slugs that are in there, but to wash them off so that you don't eat them. And basically it's just the power of the running water that knocks them off. So you've got to use you don't just rinse them gently, vigorously in fast running tap water
that you have with
yeah,
it's good.
And what about these questions about the mainland, the vegetables that are coming from other countries or other municipalities?
Most of the parasite seems to be in regions like Hawaii, you know, the warmer climates and stuff. You can do a little bit of research to where your lettuce came from. There's more than just this parasite that might be on lettuce. We've had salmonella outbreaks from spinach and lettuce and so forth. So it's always a good idea to rinse thoroughly all your vegetables and stuff. You know, this whole prevention thing, there's like, we put out these little cards, 5 things you can do. And the first thing is wash all your vegetables and fruit before you consume them. Take care of the slugs around your house. We talk about baby-proofing your house. When they're small and you have a big yard, you may want to baby-proof your backyard. Buy a pair of tongs, go out there. If you see slugs, don't handle them, use tongs. Even the farmers use tongs. Throw it in your kill jar to keep the slugs down. You know, set out traps or bait for rats so you eliminate that problem. And of course, cooking takes care of the parasite. 165 degrees for 30 seconds or boil for 3 to 5 minutes will kill the parasite. And then covering water resources so that slugs don't fall in, they drown and they fall apart, and all the worms can survive for a time in that milieu in the bottom. So if you don't have adequate filters on there, you can get it that way. So it's not just one thing, but the first thing, of course, you want to do that. And the last thing I'll say is don't take the TikTok challenge. You know, we had a guy that swallowed a slug on a bear. Well, on a bet, he got it. We had a couple of guys that found out about the centipede during a football game. One ran in front of the house. They jumped up, cut it in half. Each ate half. They both got rat lungworm disease. We had a couple soldiers out on the range that were bored in between things. They were racing snails, and the loser had to eat the snail. He got rat lungworm. Don't take the dare.
Good advice no matter what, but especially sobering given this. Let's say that you think that you may have contracted this. How do you talk to your doctor about the kind of testing that you should get? You know, now that we're spreading awareness about this, people might say, oh, I have these symptoms. You know, how do medical professionals know enough about this, know to look for it and to test for it?
Yeah, good question. I think in this documentary, you'll see it was made to educate medical personnel, but also the general public, because it's really important that patients have a high level of suspicion that they might have this disease. And they go to their physician or their medical provider as early as possible and actually mention it. You know, I think I might have rat lungworm disease. And if the medical provider is not too well aware of the disease, then they can refer to some of the information that's available on the Department of Health website. And we publish guidelines that were designed mainly for medical personnel, but very clearly it outlines how you make the diagnosis and the importance of starting treatment as early as possible. And I think there's a lot of us who are available to physicians, medical providers. You know, if they have questions about the disease, they can call us, because the clock is running and you need to make that diagnosis and start treatment as soon as possible. We really think that early diagnosis, early treatment is probably the way to prevent these severe cases. And, you know, not everybody gets better. It can take a very long time. I think that those of us who went to attend the support group meetings on the Big Island could really be impacted by the severity of the disease. It's a life-changing experience for people, not only for the patient, but for their caregivers. And when we look at all this, it's like we've got to try and prevent this. The disease tends to be more severe in Hawaii, but we have to do something differently. And I believe that early diagnosis and early treatment may be the key to preventing some of these horrible long-term problems.
Dr. Cowie, we only have a few minutes left. What are your thoughts about where this is progressing? You know, you've been studying this for some time. Do you think that this is, you know, this is something that we should all be aware of, that it is on the way, or is this something that we have a good handle on?
I would say that here in Hawaii, it's pretty much, the parasite is pretty much everywhere in Hawaii. We have to assume that, and that's a logical assumption based on our screenings of snails from all over the place. So it's pretty much everywhere here, and so we know that it's not going to get more abundant. Probably it's not going to get more widespread to different places. Elsewhere, however, it's still spreading all over the world. It's on the mainland in the southeast, primarily Florida, but there have been human cases of rat Lungworm disease contracted on the mainland in those southeastern states. It's recently been found in islands in the Mediterranean, so it's close to Europe. It's not present in Europe yet, other than those islands, but it's potentially spreading. We don't know its distribution in Africa. So it's still spreading. People around the world are still learning about it, and we just published another paper. Vernon and I were both authors of it, in which we did a similar thing to what the movie did, which is trying to educate the medical community about, not just in the United States and Hawaii, but globally, about the likely spread of this parasite and the disease that it causes. So it's by no means got everywhere where it's going to go. It's still emerging, and it's an emerging infectious disease.
I want to make sure that we get to you before we run out of time. What do you want people to know about what this has been like, and what would you tell folks who are watching tonight?
Yeah, it's a challenging journey. I think one of the challenges is that a lot of people don't know what rat lungworm is. And, you know, even my grandmother, 2 months later, she thought I was totally fine, and she was very confused why I couldn't even answer my phone or communicate back with her. And so it's long, ongoing, and I would never want anyone else to experience these things. So please wash your lettuce, or don't eat lettuce, eat kalo, or ulu, things that you have to cook. But I also don't want people to be afraid of engaging in their environment and their ecosystems. These introduced pathogens have a way of bringing fear into our communities, and so we disengage from our practices. And that's heartbreaking to me. Even as somebody who's experienced it, I want to support local farmers. I want to make sure we have the capacity to have our kids running around eating dirt, growing their microbiome so that they build healthy immune systems. And so I think we just need to maka'ala. We need to be aware. We need to watch. And we need to know that these things are in our system so that we can be proactive about that, right? If you're a farmer or you're somebody who's growing food for a community, do a snail and slug survey. Look at what you have in your environment and think, is it a best idea to grow produce that people will eat raw? Or how can we establish better washing techniques? So, yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being here with us tonight. We, of course, do thank our guests, Dr. Rob Cowie, Dr. Vernon Ansdell, Dr. Kiana Frank, and Joe Elm from the Department of Health. Next week, Insights is taking a break for Thanksgiving, but we'll be back on December 1st to talk about holiday scams. Please do join us then. I'm Yanji Denise for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Aloha and a hui hou.